You guys will get a replay. So there's going to be a lot of data that we're going to cover today. You will get a replay, a link to the replay. So don't feel bad if you feel like you can't write everything down, you can't internalize everything. We will have that replay for you. There's a lot of things that I'm going to be covering. And so I wanted to just kind of give you that little disclaimer that we'll be covering a lot, but don't worry, we will be sending you the replay. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to be talking about inventory strategies for restock limits and for the supply chain chaos that has been going on. But building inventory management systems is important now more than ever so that you can remain in stock, avoid overstocking, and keep the profitability within your business. So really quickly, just about me, I've been selling on Amazon since 2014. About 3 years ago, I decided that I needed to immerse myself in inventory management because that was one of the biggest pain points within my business, even back before Restock Limits. I've spoken to hundreds of 6, 7, and 8-figure sellers specifically on the topic of inventory management, what works, what doesn't work, what they would like to see in terms of a system to be built out. And I have written over 50 articles on inventory and supply chain management, been on dozens of podcasts. SoStocked has over 1,000 users, and we're backed by top masterminds, influencers, agencies, and aggregators as well. For staying to the end, I'm going to be giving you a couple of things that should help you with your inventory management process. One of the things will be a DIY inventory spreadsheet. So for those of you who are currently using Excel, haven't yet transitioned over into a system such as SoStocked, that will be a helpful tool for you. And then for everyone, inventory-minded marketing planner. I will be talking about what exactly that is later on in our talk, but it's a way to essentially sync your inventory and your marketing team together to make sure that you aren't missing anything as you place your orders. And then the inventory workflow checklist that helps to coordinate your inventory team, marketing team, as well as your cash flow team or your accounting team. And then lastly, a cross-department SOP. So anything that inventory management touches and all of the different departments that work within the inventory process, this is SOPs built out for the purpose of helping to manage your inventory. So again, you'll get that if you stay to the end, and let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is to emphasize the 3 pillars of inventory management. Because inventory can be a very complex subject and has a lot of moving parts. We tend to get overwhelmed and think that we are not able to really learn or systemize inventory management that easily. But I wanted to break it down into the simplicity. Basically, all you want to know is 3 things. You want to know how much inventory you need. What do you need to place an order? How much do you need to place for your orders, for your transfers? That would be your calculation side. Then you need to know by when. By when do you need to actually place this order? And if you're not tracking your inventory and your inventory as it moves through your organization, you will have a really hard time tracking by when do you need to do this. And then lastly is how does it get there, the logistics. So I'm going to talk a bit about logistics, the state of freight in Amazon, why your inventory doesn't check in when you think it should be checking in. Amazon says it's lost, it doesn't check in for 5 weeks. What is it that is happening? And how can we, with the knowledge of understanding how Amazon's logistics systems work, how can we create systems that are more flexible so that we can be in stock at all times? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the calculation side of this equation. First off, I like to say numbers don't lie, or do they? What I mean by that is that if your formula is incorrect in how you're calculating your inventory, you could create a situation where you are continually stocking out, or you're placing orders that are way too high for what you can actually sell within a given period of time. So let's talk about how numbers might lie to you. So the first thing to know is that you should not be looking at your total monthly sales. Sometimes when you go to, let's say, plan your sales for Christmas, you'll just take how many units did I sell during Christmas, and you'll take that number from, let's say, mid-November all the way to the end of the year, and you say, that's what I'm going to order. The problem with that is that there's other data within there that could mislead you. Things like sales spikes. For example, we had in mid-October last year, we had Prime Day. We don't have that this year. So if you place an order with that with the old technique of just looking at your sales for that period of time, you might have over ordered. So you want to eliminate these sales spikes that are not going to be occurring again. And then you have stock out. So if you stocked out and you didn't account for that stock out, then your order is going to be smaller than what it should be. So what you want to do is create what's called a daily adjusted velocity. So this is your sales velocity that is adjusted to remove those anomalies such as sales spikes and stockouts. And you need to do it the right way. There are many tools out there and softwares that help you to remove stockouts, but even their stockout calculation can be wrong. And I'm going to explain exactly why that is. But in a total, you want to think of your daily adjusted velocity as your true velocity. It's taking out all of those things that, on a normal day wouldn't happen. You get mentioned on an influencer's blog post or something like that. You get somehow mentioned, and then you get a day or two of stellar sales, right? That's not always going to happen. So you need to remove those things. All right, so that's daily adjusted velocity. This is what I mean when I'm talking about a stockout algorithm that could either hurt you or harm you. If you have a stockout calculation, I'm going to give you a little bit of a case study just to explain the concept of how a stockout calculation could be wrong. We had a 7-figure seller come into SoStocked after years of using another software. He was using another software, and over that time had discovered that the stockout algorithm was wrong and it was causing him to stock out. So he created his own spreadsheet, but even his own spreadsheet, although better, was still causing him to stock out on his best sellers. So when he came into SoStocked, he looked at what our daily adjusted velocity was, and he was surprised at how large it was. He didn't really believe that he could be selling that many units per day. So he dug into the data, and this is what we found. We found that he kept stocking out in this way. The competing software was saying that he was selling 8 units a day based on their calculation. His calculation said 10 units a day, but our calculation said 15 units a day. 15 units a day was his true velocity, or his daily adjusted velocity. So on each of these, he was stocking out, but on nailing that number and getting that number right, he was all of a sudden ordering the proper number of units and no longer stocking out at that point. So this is why this happens. The first question is, did you have stock? If you had no stock to sell, you obviously can't sell that inventory. This is something that you can pull from Amazon's historical API. We pull the data directly from Amazon's API. If you don't have an API pull that you do within your system, this is something that you should track on a stockout log. And the DIY spreadsheet that I'm going to share has a stockout log. But this is something you should be tracking moving forward. You can't, unless you use the API, you unfortunately can't get the granular data of lost sales or stockouts. The second one is, was there an unusual interruption in your normal sales velocity? This could be things like right before you stock out, you usually have a slower sales day, right? Right as you come back in stock, say in the afternoon, you have lower sales day as well. Or Amazon finds that 1 or 2 units and pushes those units during a stock out. So you have a day of 1 sale, and that's counted as, potentially counted as an in-stock day. Also things like listing suspensions. You have inventory there. Amazon has just turned off your listing temporarily. That should also be addressed as a sort of a stock out. Here's how this works. Most of these calculations are only looking at the first point. Did you have stock? They're not looking at these anomalies. Was your inventory, was your daily sales significantly lower than your average? This is how this looks. Let's say we have 100 sales on average that we're normally doing. Some calculations are looking at these lower sales days, 23 sales, 1 sale, 13 sales, looking at those as in-stock days. We factor those as stock out days. That becomes very important because if you're looking at daily adjusted velocity. If you're looking at an average, let's say you're looking at a 30-day average, and that's what you're using to base your entire calculation for your forecasting and reordering on. That presents a problem here if you are looking at it the way this competing software is looking at it. They look at the stock out as being only 4 days, and there are 26 days of in stock. And we look at 23 days of in stock. And what the difference is that we're looking at the actual average of your inventory would be 100 units a day versus the competing software giving you 90 units a day. If you can extend that over a 3-month order, being short 10 days across 90 days worth of inventory, that is a significant shortage in your inventory. This is why you have these problems. So you place these orders and then you think that you're good for 3 months and you're not really paying attention. And so then when you place your order the next time around, you're far too late based on your lead times, right? All right, next up, I wanted to talk about the #1 inventory mistake sellers make. So beyond getting, let's just assume that you've got your calculation correct, because your calculation will be correct unless you have a stock out or a sales spike that you need to remove. So let's just assume your calculation is correct. The #1 inventory mistake sellers make, and this is based on just feedback, talking to hundreds of sellers. Like I said, hundreds of sellers I've talked to, I've onboarded them into the software. And this mistake came up time and time again, came up with PPC agencies, came up with, full service agencies as well, came up with from pretty much the majority of people that I talked to who had stock out problems before 2020. And that is marketing inside of a vacuum. What this means is that you got a great idea, you go to an event, you hear a hack, you apply the hack, and it does amazing things for you. So amazing that you end up selling out your inventory and you stock out. Marketing inside of a vacuum causes huge problems, especially now because of restock limits. When you stock out of your inventory and you have a stock out, it creates problems within your restock limits actually tanking and making it more difficult for you to send in inventory afterwards. So it becomes important for you to plan out your marketing with your inventory team. You can no longer focus on just your best sellers. You need to actually market across your entire catalog. You need to market your best sellers, coordinate your best sellers, but also coordinate how you're going to move those slow sellers. If you've got slow sellers, they can soon become a problem for you if you don't get a handle on that. So we're going to talk about a system for being able to get these two teams working together. And it's with this series of about 5 different reports that you can create. Okay, so the first one is that marketing needs to give inventory their marketing plans to vet out before execution. And this is actually one of the things that I'm going to be sending you guys. This is, we call it the inventory minded marketing planner. We started using this term that we created called inventory minded marketing. And that's to give the concept of that you need to have inventory in mind whenever you're doing your marketing. So things that would be included in this are, what kind of a velocity calculation are you using? Are you using the last 30 days as your calculation? Are you using last year's sales? What calculation are you using for your velocity? Then you've got the trend. You want to see if you're trying to map out a product that is trending very popularly. You could either look at, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year increase. You can also add daily additional sales growth. That becomes very helpful when you're planning PPC campaigns. You have a PPC campaign, you say, okay, I think I'm going to be increasing my sales by 10% with this campaign. And that can then be applied to your inventory planning so that you can see whether or not you have enough inventory. Because sometimes if you start these campaigns, you don't have enough inventory, it's going to cost you not only in the ad spend and the any coupon codes, anything like that, that portion is going to cost you. And then of course, there's the obvious, the stock out and lost sales, the re-ranking costs, any air shipments, all of those things add up to a lot of money, and it costs your bottom line a lot more than you can really even think, because you have those ad costs that are also maybe not, maybe not necessary at this time with that particular SKU. Then you have lightning deals. put in a date range, the total units that you think you're going to sell. This can also be used for any sort of sales event with an influencer, email campaign, and the like. Then lastly, seasonal sales spikes. This is a percentage that you can use to increase or decrease based on seasonality, right? Okay, now inventory is not off the hook. They actually need to take responsibility for helping to provide marketing with the data that marketing needs to be able to ensure that there's a healthy flow of movement through your FBA warehouse. The first thing that you want inventory to be providing to your marketing team is called the Stockout Risk Report. So the Stockout risk report looks something like this. We have a Stockout risk report inside of SoStocked, but there's also a calculation here. The base calculation that you'll want to be looking at is your total inventory that you have for a particular marketplace for that SKU divided by the daily adjusted sales velocity. And that's going to give you your total days of remaining stock. So you'll be able to figure out if you're going to be stocking out. And so the Stockout risk report essentially will show you when you're going to stock out, how many days you'll be stocked out, and that will help to have the marketing team plan to either back off of the promotions and make more money with the sales, or if you're going to be stocked out for a long period of time, they might choose to blast sales and take the product out at a very as higher ranking as possible, close the listing so that when they come back, they don't have as much difficulty in re-ranking the product, right? Okay, these next three are actually going to sound, they're going to sound somewhat similar, but I'm going to explain the difference to you. First is the slow sellers report. I call this report the move it or lose it SKUs, right? These are the things that maybe they're not doing horribly, but they're not doing great. So you need to make something happen with them. What you'll want to do is select a minimum and a maximum daily adjusted velocity range, and you're going to want to try to get it above that maximum. The minimum and the maximum basically would be, okay, it's anything below, let's say, for example, 20 units a day. Anything below 20 units a day, I figure that's a slow seller for my particular business. Anything above 5 units a day, that would fall into the category of, these are still slow sellers. Anything below that maybe is going to fall into a different category, which we'll talk about later. So these are kind of like, they're okay, they're not great, but you want to boost their performance so they don't become problematic. Because if they become problematic and they start slowing down, you'll eventually find that they're going to clog up your storage capacity. So the marketing team should use this to be able to help ramp up sales so that they don't fall into that next category. And that next category is your liquidation report. Liquidation report is ones that you don't plan to restock. They're so slow that you don't want to restock them. Maybe this is your, less than 5 sales a day. Selecting a minimum velocity is the only thing that you would need to do for this. Just minimum, anything below 5 units a day. We're going to devise a plan to actually move these before they become major blockers. And just because it's called the liquidation report doesn't mean you necessarily have to send it to a liquidation company. You could potentially use this to boost your sales velocity and boost your restock limits, right? We'll talk a little bit about that particular strategy a little later on, but just keep that in mind. These products are currently a liability because they're not selling, they have your cash flow tied up, they're clogging up your storage space, and they're collecting fees. So that's the liability side of inventory. The asset side of inventory is that you can recover some of that cash and you can use that to increase sales velocity, boost your restock limits, and improve your IPI score. All right, and then lastly is the Overstock report. Some of these other products could be on your Overstock report, but your best sellers could also be on this. So let's say you're looking at anything over 90 days of supply on Amazon. Nowadays, with restock limits, those get into closer to, say, maybe 60 days of stock, but let's just go with 90 as an example. This is those products that you have additional inventory being held at FBA. And again, the concept of they're either an asset or a liability also rings true. If you want to launch a new product, but you have a ton of your best sellers sitting there, maybe you want to use that to boost your ranking, to boost your restock limits, and move some of that inventory out. So if the marketing team knows that you have all of this excess inventory, they know which products that they can really lean on to increase those specific aspects of your business. All right, then we get to tracking. All right, tracking. The big question that we get in Amazon or in SoStocked is, where is my stuff? I want to know where my stuff is. Yeah, I want to be able to calculate, but there's so many things going on. I want to know, where are the orders? Where are, what stage are they at in the process? How much inventory do I have at my various different warehouses all across the planet? And given that information, then I know when I can place my orders and my transfers. So there are a couple of ways that you can track this. If you're not using SoStocked, you can set up a Kanban view that could be similar to this with in production, en route, third-party warehouse, and FBA check-in. These move as you move through the process. If you were to use a Kanban like Trello or Airtable, you would have to move those manually yourself. These are currently set to work on against your lead time and will move automatically based on your lead time. Then you have inventory on hand. Inventory on hand basically is a way of listing out all of your products and all of the inventory so that you get the total inventory from FBA all the way through to all of your warehouses. You have a view of what your total inventory is. And that can be also broken down by marketplace. And then you have inbound shipments. That's pretty obvious. You know what shipments are being sent in and when they should arrive. Warehouse levels for each warehouse, what inventory is sitting at each warehouse. And then orders within the next 30 days. So these are all things that you should be able to track. All right. The basis of tracking these things and the basis of knowing when to reorder is something called the reorder point, quite aptly named. The reorder point is a simple formula, and it's based on taking buffer stock, which is your excess inventory, right? The stock that you have as a cushion, taking that and then adding that to your lead time, and that will give you your reorder point. So here are some guidelines for the reorder point and the buffer stock. The buffer stock, you want to look at a couple of things. The longer the lead time or transfer time, the higher the buffer stock should be, because the more things that can go wrong, right? So we've had a lot of people increasing their buffer stock just based on the fact that the lead times have increased within the last, say, 18 months. The other thing that you should consider is setting your buffer stock in days rather than in units. This would be, let's say you have a 30-day buffer stock. If you have a 30-day buffer stock, that's better than, say, having 300 units of buffer stock. Because if you're selling 10 units a day in one season and 30 units a day on your high season, then those units per day in terms of your buffer stock those units in terms of your buffer stock are going to be fluctuating in terms of how many days worth of stock you actually have. So using your buffer stock, creating your buffer stock in days and having those days reference your daily adjusted velocity becomes a much more accurate way of calculating for that. And then you should have buffer stock at FBA, but you should also have buffer stock at your 3PL warehouse. And lastly, there's something called geo-ranking. Geo-ranking is the concept that if you don't have enough inventory spread throughout the country, Amazon is going to penalize you in certain geographical areas. So if in the Midwest, you don't have a lot of inventory, they may sort of creep you down the ranking and maybe stop showing your ads in those particular areas. So that's something to keep in mind. You can have slower sales simply based on the fact that you don't have enough inventory. So don't run too lean if at all possible. A good rule of thumb has been 30 days of buffer stock. However, Amazon check-in times are very, very slow, and we'll talk about how you can speed those things up. But Amazon check-in times are very slow, and that causes problems. So you might have to increase the amount of buffer stock if you have the ability to do that inside of your restock limit constraints. All right, and then we have lead times and transfer times. These are essentially just how, lead times, how long it takes for your inventory to arrive from the point it's ordered to the point it reaches its final destination. The caveat here is that you need to speak to your suppliers, your freight forwarders, your warehouses, and get real up-to-date lead times. You may go to place an order and your supplier says, we're having a raw material shortage. It's going to take another 30 days on top of what you were expecting. It's such a crazy, chaotic time right now that it's very, very important that you keep up to date and make sure that you have accurate lead times every time you place an order. So reach out frequently and kind of get a pulse on what's happening and what to expect. And to end off, we've got 30 days of buffer stock plus 60 days of lead time. That would equal 90 days before your stock out you want to reorder. So you take your buffer stock, add your lead time, and that gives you your reorder point. And then all you need to basically know is what your stock out date is, right? So 90 days before your stock out date, you'll need to place that order. And this is all stuff that can be factored into something that I like to call an inventory timeline. We have an inventory timeline that will map out when you're going to stock out. And then it will work everything backwards for you so that your reorder time is automatic. But if you don't have that, if you're using an Excel spreadsheet, I recommend putting together an inventory timeline so that you can kind of run those calculations and run those equations as well. Especially if you're just starting out, this becomes extremely valuable to get an understanding of how your inventory actually works and how if you have problems with stocking out or overstocking, you can start to identify problems if you lay it out in something like this. A quick case study. So specifically on the concept of tracking and creating reorder points and reorder alerts, we had someone who came into the software, had been doing a ton of air shipments, not giving enough time to be able to get inventory into Amazon. And what ended up happening is when she started tracking her reorder point, had some buffer stock, as well as setting accurate lead times, he was able to go from sea freight or air freight into now doing sea shipments. And that made the cost per unit, the shipping cost per unit, go from $1.20 to 45 cents. When you looked across the business, it was $150,000 in savings and shipping costs just from being able to calculate and follow the reorder point and to get reorder alerts backed up by that. All right, let's talk about logistics. This is one of the subjects that I am becoming increasingly interested in. The first thing that we need to talk about as we're talking about logistics is why we have all of a sudden such chaos in logistics at this time, why logistics has gotten so much more complex beyond what's happening globally. And that, of course, is what most people are struggling with, which is restock limits. I call it the elephant in the room, even though everyone is talking about it. When you go to events and you go to all of these workshops and things like that, you're always hearing about this marketing trick, that marketing hack, and the back of our minds, a lot of us are thinking, that's great, but what if I don't have stock? What if I'm stocking out? I can barely keep in stock. I can't do any marketing because I can barely keep in stock. So this has become a real problem. And I wanted to talk about what is it that Amazon is looking at and what are the biggest factors determining restock limits. First of all, Amazon never intended to be a storage facility. They always intended to be a distribution center. And what that means is that they're trying to get back to being a distribution center. They want inventory to come in and they want to send it out and make some money in the process. They don't make as much money on their storage costs, although storage costs are going up along with the rest of the fees in the new year. Of course, it's actually one of the highest increases that Amazon has ever done. But regardless, they make more money when they sell your products. So they want to move your products through their distribution centers. So that being said, sell-through is the most important factor that Amazon uses to calculate restock limits. There's other factors involved. If you've got seasonality, that could be thrown in there. There's also what I call the oh shit lever. That is basically Amazon saying, oh shit, we don't have enough room for all of this inventory. We are going to pull a lever and lower everybody's restock limits overnight. And we've all faced that. And so those are those factors, but the main factor beyond those things that we can't control is Amazon is looking at sell-through. And this is how Amazon actually defines sell-through. It's your FBA rolling 90-day sell-through rate is the number of your units sold and shipped over the past 90 days divided by the average number of units available at fulfillment centers during that time. So that's a bunch of words. What does that actually mean? So what that actually means is we'll say, what did you sell in the last 90 days? That number goes on top. What is the average in terms of the units that you had available on any given day at FBA? That goes on bottom, and then you divide the top number by the bottom number and you get sell-through rate. So if you sold 9,000 units in the last 90 days and you kept around 3,000 units at any given time, that would be a sell-through rate of 3 or a monthly turnover, right? The sell-through rate of 3. So if you go to your inventory performance dashboard and you see that number, it could be a 1.3, it could be a 2.5, whatever that number is, this is how they calculate it. So if you want to improve that number, and people have definitely been able to improve that number over time, if you want to improve that number and make Amazon more happy with you in terms of inventory, this would be the calculation that would help you to do that. And then you have the other scenario, which would be if you had 9,000 units in sales, but you held 9,000 units, that would be a score of 1 or a quarterly turnover rate. This is also the main thing to focus on if you're having IPI limit problems. And you'll know if you're having IPI limit problems because you won't be able to send in the inventory that you think you should be able to send in. The difference between IPI limitations and restock limitations are in number of units, and your IPI limitations are in total space, right? It's called storage volume. And if you don't have a good IPI score, you'll get restrictions such as that, and they become very, very difficult to deal with. I've talked to people who have these restrictions and their limits are immensely lower. You know, think around 15, 16, 20 days worth of inventory, right? Okay, so utilization. How utilization is calculated. We're all obsessed with utilization now that we have restock limits. This is how Amazon says it's calculated, and then there's how we have found it is actually calculated. So we have FBA available inventory plus all incoming shipments, working, in transit, receiving, etc. So if you are having trouble with your utilization not seeming quite right, go ahead and look and see if there are any working shipments that you're not using. Once you delete those, then you should see your utilization become more available. And then of course, unfulfillable inventory. So removing unfulfillable inventory will be helpful towards improving your restock limits based on utilization. And then of course, Amazon says that your removal orders and your reserved inventory are not included in utilization, but we have found that not to be the case. I also recently talked to Vanessa Hung. If you know Vanessa, full-time Amazon.com, I believe. She was saying that in terms of reserved inventory, if you've got inventory that is stuck and it's not moving out of reserved inventory in the 30 days that it should take them to move it, you can actually sometimes call them and tell them you're having problems, and they will sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you get a good catalog specialist, they'll be able to release that reserved inventory and have that inventory go back into your available inventory. So just something to keep in mind, some of the things that you can do in terms of improving your utilization. All right, then the relationship between sell-through and utilization, that average utilization is essentially that average number of units available. So that's how that factors into sell-through. All right, that said, Amazon has no sympathy for your stockouts. They really don't care. Their algorithm does not factor stockouts into the equation. That means that if you do stock out, when your sales drop because of your stock out, your restock limits drop. They're not giving you the benefit of the doubt that if you had inventory, you would have sold an extra, say, 2,000 units. They don't care. They are not calculating it that way. So if you do stock out, it can become a big problem, but there are things that you can do if that does occur to help you to make sure that your restock limits don't plummet. And the first one would be fulfilled by merchant. So sometimes we stock out because Amazon hasn't checked our inventory in. So if we have inventory available outside of Amazon, we can switch on our fulfilled by merchant, our FBM listing, and start taking on sales that way. Those sales, even though they're not fulfilled by Amazon, count towards your restock limit. So doing FBM helps you not only to continue to sell and stay in business while you have this stock out occurring at Amazon itself, but also helps to bolster your restock limits. Then you have excess inventory. We talked about excess inventory in our inventory reports, running flash sales. So the beauty of the storage type limit versus ASIN type is that we are now allowed to take any product across our entire catalog and use that product to increase sales and that benefits the rest of our catalog. When we had ASIN type limits, that was not true. Now it is true. So even though storage type limits have been very problematic to us in that the limits were much lower, the benefit is that we can actually play across the entire catalog. So keep that in mind. Keep excess inventory available. Even if you've pulled that inventory, turn on the FBM and start driving sales via FBM. Because that will help in both ways. FBM, it's not putting inventory into Amazon, it's driving sales velocity and it's keeping your utilization low. So all of those are contributing to being able to keep your restock limits in a good range. And then lastly, multi-channel fulfillment. So using multi-channel fulfillment to bolster sales, borrowing sales velocity from other channels by switching to multi-channel fulfillment. This would be your Shopify account, for example. If you run out of your best seller, but your Shopify sales for the rest of your catalog are decent, you can consider moving that and plugging that into Amazon, and those sales from Shopify will actually count towards your restock limits. That's something to keep in mind. Don't do this with Walmart. Walmart does not play nice with Amazon, so they're potentially would shut down your account if you did something like this. So stay away from fulfilling Walmart through Amazon. That's a no-no. But things like Shopify, eBay, those types of things could potentially help you to increase your restock limits. The other thing that this works with is manual fulfillment orders. So if you have someone orders, say, 15 units or 30 units of a product for their own store, let's say their own brick and mortar store, you have a wholesale order, you could potentially fulfill those through Amazon, and those sales would then contribute to restock as well. All right, then we have logistics flexibility. So this becomes very relevant when we have these problems with restock limits and we have these problems with the supply chain. We need to have a lot of different ways that we can potentially get inventory into Amazon or available for sale, and do it in such a way that it doesn't completely destroy us financially. So you have to be flexible. And these are some of the things that we are personally doing in our business and recommending others do in their businesses. The golden rule, the first rule that I give always about logistics flexibility is never let anyone have all your stuff. We lost out on a Christmas worth of sales back in 2015 because we let Amazon have all our stuff and we trusted that they would check it in on time. Many people are facing that same thing. Giving Amazon all your stuff is a problem. Giving a boat all your stuff has been a problem. We're seeing that, obviously. So this is what you should do. If you have a container full of inventory that you need to send, when you place your initial order, produce more than a container's worth. Fill up the container and hold the rest of the inventory at your suppliers. That is going to be used just in case you need to airship something. If you have an ocean freight and it's sitting there and it's not getting checked in, then your air shipment can then be sent over, but only if you need to. So only incur that cost if you absolutely need to. So you're holding that inventory at your supplier. In terms of your cash flow, what you'll want to do is work out with your supplier for them to hold that excess inventory for potentially for free. We have a relationship with ours that they hold it for free up to a certain amount of time. So that could be arranged potentially with your supplier. So you're not paying storage fees on that inventory. And then in terms of your payment terms, you can potentially pay for the whole order 30% upfront for both the ocean and air shipments. And then when the ocean shipment goes, you pay that another 70% to release the bill of lading. Pay that 70% or pay that final payment. And then for your air shipment, you'll pay that if and when you need it. So your supplier could potentially be both holding your inventory for free and then also holding your air shipment, your potential air shipment, and only charging you when you actually send it out. That's a way to alleviate the cost of creating additional orders or additional units in that order. And then of course you should have your 3PL and then you have your FBA. Then beyond that, when you get stateside or to your final local destination, you'll want to do the same thing with your LTL and your small parcel delivery. Your LTL would be, think of that as your ocean freight. You put everything on there, but you have sent more than you need, and that's being held in your 3PL, just like your supplier is holding your other stock. At that point, you would only use small parcel delivery if you're finding that there's something problematic going on with your LTL. Amazon's perhaps not checking it in. It's been 3 weeks and they're not checking it in. You're going to stock out. So you send small parcel delivery from your 3PL to FBA. And that helps to solve that, because small parcel delivery has been one of the most expensive but most reliable ways to get inventory into Amazon. And I am going to tell you in the next, I believe it's one of the next slides, why it is that Amazon is taking 5-6 weeks to check things in. But make sure that you have these types of systems, and then of course that you have FBM, because if Amazon doesn't check your stuff in, you still need that ability to fulfill your orders. Even if you're selling through Amazon, you need the ability to fulfill through other channels. All right, now comes to the why does it take so long for my inventory to check in? What is going on? What the truck is going on? There is a reason, and this is a reason that is largely based on Amazon Freight. There's something called Amazon Freight and the Amazon trucking contracts. Amazon has contracts with certain companies in a couple of different ways. One is the Amazon Partner Carrier, LTL, right? SPD has tended to be pretty reliable via Amazon non-partner carrier, as well as other outside of Amazon small parcel delivery. But LTL has been just a nightmare for some people. So you have Amazon Freight and Amazon Partner Carrier, and they tend to work in tandem. What Amazon Freight is Amazon bought a whole bunch of trailers, right? They have a whole bunch of these trailers, and they are giving them to truckers and saying, we're going to pay you, you drop off the trailer, you pick up an empty one, you get another shipment, and then you're basically using that cycle of dropping off and picking up. It works beautifully until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, this is what is happening. They're dropping the trailer and there's no empty trailer and they have to just leave. Those full trailers are sitting there full of your product and they're not being unloaded because Amazon has a hard time getting the labor to be able to unload it. They also have problems with space. And so those are causing problems with your inventory not being checked in for various long amounts of time. The other companies that don't have the same agreement with Amazon, and you can talk to your 3PL managers about this, there are other companies where they literally just show up, they pull up to the loading dock, they empty the contents of their trailer that same day into the loading dock, and they drive away. That's why some shipments get checked in really quickly and other shipments sit there for weeks. That is what's happening. That is the reason that we are facing the problems that we're facing. And so when you have LTL, using a company that will not drop off their trailer, that has a contract that does not commit them to drop off their trailer, when you have that particular type of a relationship with that company, you can have them send your inventory straight in. And this is something that I like to call net check-in time. Amazon, of course, Amazon is going to prioritize the Amazon trucks. Amazon's going to give a faster delivery time. So you might get a later delivery than an Amazon truck, right? An Amazon relationship. But If your inventory is getting checked in faster, it doesn't matter what your delivery time is. You can have a later delivery, earlier check-in. I call it net check-in time. All we really want to know is the net check-in time. When everything's all said and done, whose stuff is getting checked in first, right? So this is something that I actually learned from my 3PL manager. And it's very, very important that you talk to your 3PL managers, talk to your freight forwarding rep. They're your best allies. Currently, what we are often doing is just writing, going into Amazon, creating our shipping labels, sending them on and saying, I paid Amazon partner carrier, just send my stuff. And we're not asking them, is that actually the right choice? Because it used to be. And for a long, long time, Amazon was the right choice. It was cheaper, it was faster, it was easier. Nowadays, that's not the case. This could change in 3 months. So consistently talk to your 3PLs and your freight forwarding reps and ask them what they know, because they're so busy, they don't have time to do anything but process your stuff. But if you pick up the phone and you say, hey, am I doing this right? Is there some way I could do this more quickly? Clue me in as to what is the most economical and efficient way to get my stuff checked in quickly. So make them your best friends. No longer should you treat them like order takers. They are some of your best allies. They have some of the best data, especially in this supply chain chaos that we're facing. So to that point, stop using Amazon Partner Carrier. Like I said, small parcel delivery, Amazon Partner Carrier should be okay from what we are hearing from our various sources. But LTL, look at other options, talk to your 3PLs, find out which ones are getting your inventory in fast. I know that T-Force works in 2 different ways with Amazon Partner. They work Amazon Partner Carrier and non-partner carrier. When they're non-partner carrier, they're a lot faster to check in than when they're Amazon Partner Carrier. So again, talk to your 3PLs, find out what's the best option. One little caveat, if you're not using partner carriers, make sure that your insurance covers you or that the carrier has insurance to cover you, because if your inventory gets lost before it arrives to Amazon, Amazon might not cover the reimbursement. That's something to keep in mind. And then lastly, in terms of trucking, log your trailer numbers. Amazon can't track your packages until they actually get checked in. They can't use their X-ray vision to look into the trailer sitting outside in their parking lot and say, yes, your inventory is in that trailer. But they can and do track trailer numbers. Every single trailer has a unique number. It's like a serial code. They'll be able to track it. They'll be able to look in the system and find out where is your inventory if you know what trailer number it's attached to. Oftentimes it's just buried inside of the yard, right? It's just out there in the trailer yard, and you just have to wait. But sometimes there are problems. And one of the instances this happened was inventory that was supposed to be sent to Nevada went instead to California. That became a problem because California opened it up and said, this is Nevada inventory, and then closed it and said, not ours, not our problem. And it just sat there. So the 3PL manager is a friend of mine, Sebastian Scazi at Amazing Logistics. He called up and he said, hey, I have this trailer number. Where is this inventory? And they said, oh yeah, this is in California. Not Nevada. So they actually were able to authorize an override and say, check this inventory in to California, even though it's Nevada inventory. And that helped to unstick the problem, but who knows how long that inventory would have been lost. So if you have situations, and I've heard situations where people are still waiting for inventory to check in that they sent in August, it might be one of these situations. So if you have the trailer numbers and you've logged the trailer numbers, this can help you to debug some of those issues. So talk to your 3PL, make sure that they're logging the trailer numbers. They're the ones loading the trailers. They're the only ones who can potentially do that for you. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up, guys. Just a little bit about SoStocked for those of you who are not aware of SoStocked. We are going to be getting into any questions. If you guys have questions, I know it's like drinking from a fire hose, but SoStocked, this is SoStocked is the first fully customizable Amazon inventory management software built for Amazon sellers by Amazon sellers. And when I say that, I don't mean that we just decide that we're Amazon sellers and we decided to build a system. I mean that we have worked together with hundreds of sellers to build out this software. We take on all suggestions and figure out how to work them in to make the software as customizable and usable to Amazon sellers as possible. So when I say for Amazon sellers, by Amazon sellers, that is what I mean. I mean, you guys. We also have been the first and perhaps only software to factor in restock limits. We have over 1,000 happy customers. Like I said, we do free data migration. So I know Simon mentioned that he's still on his Google Sheets. Go ahead and send those over to us, your Google Sheets, and we can help you to migrate that information into your SoStocked system. And then one-on-one onboarding calls to teach you not just about the software and what you can do with the software, but how to best create workflows for your particular business, right? If there are problems that you're having, we are specialized in how do we solve those problems? How do we make sure that your system is smooth enough so that you are not running out of stock, you are not missing deadlines, and your systems are very clear and clean for you to be able to manage things properly. Here's a couple of those things. Customizable forecast per SKU. Here is our restock limits calculation, our velocity calculations, as well as trend, sales spikes, stockouts, deep discounts, additional sales growth, and then our inventory timeline, which is by far my favorite feature. And then we've got the order and transfer tracker that we were talking about before, customizable inventory dashboards to see all the data that you want, nothing that you don't. And then lastly, PO and transfer creation so that you can create purchase orders and send them out to your suppliers within the click of a couple of buttons. A couple of things people have been saying about SoStocked. Forecasting is hands down the most accurate I've come across in 7 years. SoStocked solved 99% of our forecasting challenges. I'm getting rid of spreadsheets forever. We make much more money now that we're in stock. We're down from hours to only a few minutes. And then features, pushing new features continuously and truly listening to our needs. I have a couple of deals. We have some Black Friday deals. This is the first time we've ever done Black Friday deals. These deals can be received by not just new customers, but also existing customers are taking advantage of some of these deals. And one of them is 2 accounts for the price of 1. So if you have 2 accounts, you can get both accounts for the price of 1. That's for new customers. Annual subscription for 20% off. So that's for new and existing customers. And then of course, 30-day free trial. We don't offer a free trial. So if you are interested in trying SoStocked, reach out and we can get you set up with a 30-day free trial. These deals are good till the end of November. So reach out, let me know if you have any questions. I will also put the link inside of the chat. Let's see. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I think again, it's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose this time. So let's see. We do have something here. Do the forecasting numbers take current purchase orders into account? Yes. So part of the process of setting up the forecast is to make sure that you have all of your warehouse inventory in there, and then any purchase orders that you have in there. So you can put the purchase orders in there yourself, or you can work with our team and send us the purchase orders, and our team can actually put those purchase orders in for you. And we'll have to just figure out, you'll send the purchase orders, and then all we need is to know kind of the lead time. When do we expect this to ship? How long is it going to be shipping for, etc. All right, Elena says, thank you so much. Love your t-shirt, by the way. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we got to get some more of these made up. We got a bunch of them made up. We gave some of them out, a lot of them out, mostly at the Prosper show. But we also have, let me see if I have it. We also have this screen cleaning thing. So if you guys want one of these, reach out. Feel free to reach out. We've got a bunch of these. You can clean your laptop. But yeah, we were starting to do some of the swag. So cool. Let me just go ahead and plug in this link really quick. SoStocked.com/deals. So if anyone wants to partake in these deals, you can definitely do so. It should be a clickable link. And yeah, again, it's for new and returning and current customers. And Simon, definitely reach out to us. We want to help you guys out. I know that this season is crazy, so if it's maybe after the Christmas rush, but we're definitely looking to help get you rolling. All right, thanks guys so much. Hopefully some of this was helpful. Let me know what else you want to learn about. We're obsessed with figuring out how to improve things in logistics and inventory and supply chain, and we'll keep putting content out to help you guys with that stuff. All right. Oh, not seeing the link. Okay, Denise, so the link is sostocked.com/deals. Let me go ahead and throw that up again. Let's see. Okay, yeah, sostocked.com/deals. So these are the different types of deals you can choose from. And then when you open that up, you should be able to see the deals here and how to get those deals, right? This one here gives you the free trial link right here. So yeah, so let me know if you guys have any other questions. Reach out to me. You can reach out to me actually at sostocked.com/connect, and I'm happy to connect with you guys on socials. Often you'll want to, if you wanted to connect with me on socials, write me a message and let me know who you are. I don't accept all because I'm getting close to my limit in terms of friends. So if you want to connect with me, do send me a message when you do make that connection, because I'd love to say hi to you guys. All right. Thanks so much. Yep. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.